Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Trish O'Shaughnessy, and I'm the Postgraduate Programme Manager here in Cork University Business School. You're all very welcome to our fifth in a series of webinars that we'll be running throughout the spring. The event today will focus on key significance of sustainability for the careers of today and tomorrow. Our industry speakers will reflect on the growing importance of sustainability as a core part of the business today and as a career path, relating this to the MSc in Cooperatives, Agri-Food and Sustainable Development Programme. I'd like to introduce you to our panel speakers, and I'd like to thank them for their time in engaging in this event today. We're delighted to be joined by Yvonne Cooney, who is the Head of Sustainability at Ornua, William O'Halloran, a wild worker at Wild Work, and Quifa, who is a graduate of the programme. We're also joined by Dr. Olive McCarthy, who is the Programme Director of the MSc Cooperatives, Agri-Food and Sustainable Development Programme. So just a little housekeeping before we kick off. Please feel free to pop any questions you have in the chat function, and we'll do our best to answer them all throughout the webinar. If we don't get to the questions, they'll be answered directly after this event. If you are interested in applying for this programme, the application process is quite simple. You apply online at www.ucc.ie/en/apply. The programme is nearly full at the moment, so I would advise you to apply online as soon as possible. First of all, I would like to kick off by introducing you to Dr. Olive McCarthy, the Programme Director of the MSc in Cooperatives, Agri-Food and Sustainable Development. Thank you so much for joining us today, Olive.
Thank you, Trish, and thank you for opening our seminar this morning, and to welcome everybody who's watching today to our called Shaping the Future of Business and Community Through Sustainability Careers, where we will be discussing and reflecting on the growing importance of sustainability as a core of businesses and communities, and of course as a highly relevant career path today. Pretty much every business nowadays has a strategy around sustainable practice and is dedicating staff and entire departments of their business to building sustainability as a core part of its strategy and of its business. So even just thinking about some of the large companies that we're all familiar with, household names such as IKEA, Gas Networks Ireland, An Post, Vodafone, etc., all looking at the whole area and working in the whole area of sustainability reporting. And this is what some people, I suppose, are calling nowadays the sustainability revolution. Everybody's talking about sustainability and everybody's trying to do their bit. A survey by KPMG in 2020 showed that 88 of the top 100 companies in Ireland are now reporting on sustainability data. And in fact, this is ahead of the global average of 77% of companies in this space. So Ireland really is ahead of the game in some respects. Not in every respect, but in some respects around sustainability reporting. But of course, we also have many small and medium enterprises who are engaging in sustainability practice and reporting. And of course, every one of us as individuals and as members of our communities are very much trying to engage in sustainability. And that's very much the theme of today's seminar. We'll also speak later on about, as Trish mentioned there, the MSc in Cooperatives, Agri-Food and Sustainable Development, which is a master's programme running here in the business school, which will enable you to take up careers in this whole space. We'll also talk about a range of full scholarships we have available on the programme, covering fees, stipend, and giving a very valuable experience in terms of a placement. So we begin with our guest speakers this morning, Yvonne Cooney and William O'Halloran. Unfortunately, John Curran from Musgraves is unable to join us this morning for unavoidable reasons. So we'll start with Yvonne Cooney. Yvonne is the Head of Sustainability with Ornua. And Yvonne will give an overview of how Ornua is leading the dairy sector in embedding and implementing sustainability practices. And many of you will be familiar with Ornua. Ornua buys and sells dairy products on behalf of its member co-ops, which are various dairy processors, and exporting to 110 countries worldwide. And no doubt Yvonne will speak. Many of us are familiar with the Kerrygold brand, which is one brand that Ornua very much engaged in internationally. So Yvonne is actually alumnus of the school here in CC. She graduated with Bachelor of Commerce in 2010. Her career journey began in London, where she worked for a commercial real company, putting her major in management marketing actually into practice. And science of the real projects, Yvonne had a passion for communications. And in 2012, she returned to Dublin, a role in communications with the energy sector at Aerogrid, whom we'll hear a bit more about later on. Going in Brussels, could within the sector. Then noticing the issues of and sustainability because all sectors in 2017 and in 2020 a position of head of sustainability for the sustainability agenda with a team in Dublin and across Ornua's health science location. Yvonne. Thank you.
Thanks, Olive, for that introduction. And yeah, really, really great to join the session today and be with everyone today. I have a few slides to share, but I suppose just to give an overview of what I'm going to go through this morning. So I'm just going to explain a little bit about Ornua for those of you who might not be familiar with the organization and with the structure. And I'm also going to explain a little bit about how sustainability plays a role within the organization and how that has evolved over time. And then I'll maybe just give you a very quick synopsis of my own career path to date and how I've come into the position of head of sustainability at Ornua. So I'll just going to share a few slides with you now. So just a little bit to kick off about Ornua. So we're Ireland's largest exporter of dairy products. We're the proud owner of the Kerrygold brand, so an iconic brand which many of you may be familiar with. We have annualized sales of over 2.3 billion euros, so quite a substantial organization that sometimes surprises people. Our role really is to market the unique taste of Irish grass-fed dairy, and we export these dairy products to over 110 countries, and we have done so over the last 60 years. We have over 2,400 employees working for us, pretty much at every single corner of the globe. So this map here should give you a good sense of how widespread we are around the world. Obviously, we're a recognised Irish company, but we do really have a huge global reach. So as I mentioned, we export to around 110 markets globally. But across the world, we have 9 innovation centres. So essentially, offices and facilities that are testing new products and working with their sales teams in our various markets. We have 12 production facilities. So facilities, again, you'll see marked in white on the map, really making everything from Kerrygold butter to different dairy ingredients to pizza cheeses. If it's dairy, we produce it. And as I mentioned, we have over 2,400 employees spread across all of those different locations. Really, I suppose the reason our business exists is due to our 14,000 dairy farmers. So 14,000 dairy farmers in Ireland supply the milk that's needed every day in the production of butter and cheese, that we market and we sell around the world. We're very much collaborators, so I think of our collaboration as being threefold. So as I mentioned, we start with our farmers, so Irish dairy farmers who are dedicated to producing the highest quality milk from a grass-based system every day of the week. And then secondary in our relationship matrix is really our members. So these are the different Irish dairy cooperatives located across the island of Ireland. And these are cooperatives who have state-of-the-art, they're well-invested processor facilities, and these members continuously provide Ornua with high-quality dairy products that consumers all over the world can trust and enjoy. And then finally, ourselves, our role is really to add value to Irish milk. So our expertise lies in building sustainable routes to market, adding value to Irish milk, and in turn securing a strong return for our members and in turn our Irish dairy farmers. Just to give you a sense of our member suppliers, so some of these names you might be quite familiar with. So we have 8 member suppliers in total, just to call a few of those out. So we have Arbonne, Glanbia, who many of you may be familiar with, Lakeland Dairies, slightly north towards the border, Arrivo, who are located in Roscommon, Dairygold located in Cork, North Cork Creameries, Tipperary Co-op, and Carberry, who are also located in West Cork. So essentially, each one of these co-ops will have a number of farmers. Those farmers supply to each one of those co-ops. Those co-ops in turn supply to Ornua, where we add value to their dairy products. So how we operate, it's really quite simple. So it begins with the Irish dairy cow, and in turn Irish dairy farmers harnessing that high quality milk. As I mentioned, that milk then moves through into our member suppliers, their processing sites located around the country. And essentially, Ornua's responsibility then really begins the next step in terms of research and development of new and innovative dairy products. We have a responsibility for packing, so taking that cream, churning it into butter, and packing that into the product that's essentially sold on the other side of the world. We have a very strong and extensive branding team located in our head office in Dublin. And we also have brand teams located in the UK, in the US, and also in our German facility. Marketing, obviously, a huge element of the work that we do. So finding how these dairy products, how they should be marketed around the world, what really resonates with the consumer that allows us to sell that product. We have very extensive sales and dairy trading teams. So ultimately, sometimes I say dairy is like gold or like oil in some cases, in that it's sold on markets, it's a commodity. We have experts and economists in house that their expertise, they specialize in that area. Really, a key element of our role is establishing sustainable routes to market. So essentially finding a home for these dairy products all around the world. So for example, we work with our member suppliers to create the butter that goes into Kerrygold. The butter is made in Cork, it's shipped all around the world. We work with some other member suppliers to develop milk powders, which ultimately end up in the African market primarily. And we work also with their members in developing very specialized brands of cheeses that are then processed in a facility we have in Spain and are used to facilitate pizza cheeses for all of the big pizza names you can think of around the world. So really, it's our job to determine, where there is a market, where there is a sustainable market, and how ultimately do we get those dairy products into that market and right to the end consumer. We also have a team working very much on distribution channels, so a supply chain team looking at transport and logistics. So how is our product shipped around the world, air freight, by ship, by rail, by sea. So as you can imagine, exporting to 110 markets on a daily basis requires quite a lot of organization in terms of shipping that product all around the world. And then ultimately, having gone through all of these relevant areas, and we end up with our product, it reaches its market. Ultimately, what that does is that provides a profit, and that provides a return that's given back to the Irish dairy farmers. So right back again to farm level. So it is a very circular operation that we have. We are a cooperative, and we call ourselves a cooperative of cooperatives. So ultimately, our main aim is not to generate profit for private consumption, but ultimately to give that back to the Irish dairy farmer. Throughout this entire process, sustainability is really featured at every single element of this process. So my own team, we're a team of 3 based out of our office in Dublin. We engage quite heavily with directly with farmers on farm. We meet and engage very regularly with our member suppliers and our processors to determine how we can better work together to reduce our footprint and become more sustainable as a collective. We make sure that when we're marketing our products, that our sustainability messaging features in those marketing campaigns and in those marketing communications, really communicating with the consumer that Ireland is the most sustainable place in the world in which to produce dairy. We work very closely with our distribution teams, our supply chain teams, looking at how we ship our product around the world. Is there a more sustainable and more efficient way that we can do this, again, to reduce our footprint? So really, really, sustainability is embedded at each one of these elements of our supply chain. So hopefully that's given you a good sense for Ornua, for the business and what we do, and the sustainability role and function within our business. I'll maybe just touch on very briefly my own career path. So as we all know, sustainability is becoming a much more ingrained element of many businesses across many industries all around the world. As Olive mentioned, businesses are dedicating resources to the area of sustainability now. Within Ornua, we've always had sustainability in our business. It's always been a focus. But we've had an established team now for 2 years, and it's real testament to the fact that our business takes sustainability seriously and is willing to put in resources around that. So I suppose, how did I kind of get to this point in my career? Well, my background is very much in communications. As Olive mentioned, I'm a BCom graduate. I graduated from UCC back in 2010, moving then to London to work with a commercial rebranding company. So very much dipping my toe in the water of marketing and communications. And really, it's in that role that I learned that I had a passion for communicating and engaging with people. And that kind of formed the next kind of 6 or 7 years of my career. I moved back to Dublin in 2012 as a PR and communications intern for a company called EirGrid. So EirGrid are the national electricity grid operator. So very, very interesting role that I took up there within the energy sector. I spent some time on secondment then in a company called MSC, which is essentially the membership element of all of the different grid operators in Europe. I was based in Brussels there for a year. So I suppose moved back to EirGrid in 2014 as a senior communications specialist, and spent another 3 years working for EirGrid. I suppose between 2012 and 2017, that was really when I got my grounding in the energy sector. And I really realized, I suppose, that sustainability, climate change, the issue was becoming much more topical, much more prevalent. It was something that was getting increased focus. Working on the communications team in EirGrid and NSOE, I really had to communicate what the company was doing in that space and how the company was contributing to the overall footprint of Ireland when it comes to carbon emissions. So really developed my passion for communications, but more so my passion for sustainability, working within the energy sector. And then in 2017, finally moved to Ornua. Originally, I'd moved into Ornua working as a communications and sustainability manager. So my role was really around communicating what the company was doing in the area of sustainability, but not necessarily driving very specific sustainability projects. And I suppose that's where the business really identified a gap. Our CEO determined that, look, it's great to be talking about what we do in the area of sustainability, but we really need to establish projects that are going to solidify our position as leaders in the space and leaders within the agri-food industry in particular. So in 2018 up to the current day, I became head of sustainability. So as I mentioned, I manage a team of 3 in Dublin. We also have across our 12 production facilities around the world, we have a site sustainability specialist there who really is the advocate and the driver of sustainability at that specific site level, and who I engage with on a very, very regular basis. So it's a hugely exciting role. It's one that's evolved quite quickly. It's been a bit of a learning curve for myself, but no day is the same when it comes to a role in sustainability. You know, one day the focus is on carbon emissions, the next day I'm working on a packaging project, the day after that I'm working with our charity partnerships in terms of CSR and how we engage with our community. So hugely varied and a real fascinating role. So just to finish up for me, I suppose I just wanted to mention, I hope my career path has kind of shown that it's been a fairly unexpected trajectory into the sustainability area. I think working for a company that takes sustainability really seriously, it's only a matter of time before specific resources are put in place. But I suppose that's been over the last few years. But as Olive mentioned now, companies are really recruiting within the sustainability space. And certainly through my own experience, I've noticed that there is a lack of specific expertise in the area. And specifically within the agri-food area, Ireland's agri emissions account for over 30% of our total emissions. So it's quite an emissions intensive area, and therefore, agri-food businesses are very much looking at how do we ramp up our resources in the area of sustainability to really drive our agenda forward. And I suppose that's really where the MSc in Cooperatives, Agri-Food and Sustainable Development comes into place. Personally, I believe this is a hugely, hugely valuable program. I really commend Olive and Cubs and UCC for pushing this program forward. It's great to see some really, really high caliber graduates coming from the program. And I can certainly say, that businesses will really are looking right now today for this set of expertise, but certainly will become more in demand as the years go on. So very much in Ornua, we see ourselves as an employer of choice. We have huge amount of applications specifically to our graduate program every year, but we're always seeking talent. And I suppose in recognition of the program and the great work that's being done at UCC on the program, this year we're delighted, Ornua is delighted to offer a scholarship for the coming academic year within the MSc in Cooperatives, Agri-Food and Sustainable Development. I suppose we'll be launching that more formally in the coming weeks. And as Olive mentioned, there's fantastic resources online in terms of applying for the program. But we're really looking forward to partnering more closely with the program, with Olive and with UCC on this particular scholarship. So that's it for me. Just want to thank everyone for their time today. I left my email address on the final slide there. I'd really welcome anyone who would like to find out more about careers and sustainability within the agri-food sector to reach out at any point. I'm always available to talk to anyone who's interested in the program and also interested in the industry itself. So thanks everyone for your time, and I'm looking forward to some engagement later in the session.
Thank you very much, Yvonne. It's great to hear about the work of Ornua in the area of sustainability, but also your own journey to the point where you're working with Ornua now. So we'll move to our next speaker, William O'Halloran, and William is going to give us an overview of Wildwork as an organisation and their approach to enabling sustainability in the community and in business. And we'll also discuss some of the current biodiversity projects that Wildwork are involved in. And William has been working with CCAD since 2012, assisting people from organisations across the community to develop projects themed around biodiversity and well-being. In 2017, William became the team leader of CCAD's Wildwork initiative, which aims to help people help nature. And he's going to talk a little bit more about that today, as we said. And as well as his work with CCAD, William also works part-time in UCC on a civic engagement initiative called Community University Biodiversity Action. And he's been actively involved with community engagement projects in UCC since 2016. In other roles, he previously worked with the National Parks and Wildlife Service in organic farming and with youth organisations, including Froiga and the Youth Advocate Programme in Ireland. So I'll pass over to William. Thank you very much for joining us this morning, William.
Thank you very much, Olive, for your kind introduction. Good morning, everybody. I'm just going to get my presentation up here now. So I'm going to tell you a little story about CCAD Partnership, which is the organisation that I work for. I'm team leader of the Wildwork initiative. CCAD actually started out in the 1990s, and the story goes that there was a bunch of people in East Cork who heard that there was funding available to invest in broodmares for the racing industry. They were horse racing enthusiasts. So they gathered together a group and they went to see if they could go get this funding. And I don't actually know whether they got the funding for the broodmares or not. But what happened was they discovered that there was lots of other funding opportunities available for rural development, for improving their local communities through what was called the Leader Fund. And the Leader Fund is still there to this very day. Many people in the audience may be familiar with it. But this essentially led to the creation of East Cork Area Development, they called it at the time. And when they were setting out the boundaries for where was their territory going to be, they actually used the old cooperative area. I think they might have mapped it around where Dairygold and perhaps another cooperative was based at the time. So quite an interesting link with Yvonne's Ornua story there earlier. And CCAD as an organization grew over time, and nowadays we're actually just called CCAD, as you may have gathered, and it represents the company having moved across Cork, operating in South Cork also. We've dropped the South and East Cork bit of our name because we now operate through the island of Ireland, delivering a range of services for a whole host of different organisations, essentially helping to facilitate rural development. That's what we're all about, but it's about working with people to develop their own projects from the ground up. Now, throughout all those years, nature, or if you want to use the word biodiversity, has been a big, big part of all of these projects that have come through CCAD. But maybe you could say that nature was a part of things, but increasingly over the years, the importance of nature, the importance of biodiversity in terms of how passionate and enthusiastic people are about it has been changing. And around about 5 years ago, we saw in the Cork area in particular a huge growth in enthusiasm amongst community groups to want to make a difference, to help nature, to help conserve nature, to help rescue bees, to help tackle invasive species, to help do a whole host of things. And it's not just enthusiasm is great and all, but people need help how to do things in the best way. So we saw a need to bring some coordination into this area to help people to do the right thing. Now, also, if you want to do anything, money can be quite useful. And funding in the biodiversity sector, historically, there hasn't been much of it there, if we're going to be honest, right? So it's been a very competitive space and difficult to get the money. This is historically now I'm saying. So we were like, if you can't make things happen through funding streams, then how else can you? And we wondered, were the business community interested in investing in helping nature at their own premises? Were farmers interested in this? Were big pharmaceutical companies interested in this? Were the local community business interested in this? We hadn't really checked. So we established Wildwork with a view that we would offer services to people who wanted to be able to help out nature and see if they wanted to invest in our service, and in so doing, help nature, but also help themselves. So the thing I haven't mentioned yet about Wildwork is that if people are going to go and help nature, if they're going to go and manage a woodland, if they're going to go sow wildflower seeds and manage a meadow, that's wonderful for nature. You're going to help bees, you're going to help birds, you're going to help butterflies. But actually, this work is very healthy. It's very good for you. If you do it with other people, you do it with your family, you do it with your friends, you do it with your colleagues. There's a whole social element to it as well. So we've recognized that nature is hugely important from the well-being perspective too. So Wildwork is about helping people to help nature, to help people. Practically speaking, some of our work, I think it could fall into a few distinct areas. The biggest one perhaps is doing education and awareness raising, doing walks and talks in a local school or with a company, or creating videos that we put on YouTube so people can learn about nature in their locality. A lot what we do about teaching people about nature is about what's right around you. So we're not necessarily looking at teaching people all about the biodiversity crisis in a global context. We're more looking at what is biodiversity in the place you live? What birds and bees are living outside your home? And we're teaching people about that sort of stuff and trying to reconnect people back with the natural world that's around them, and in so doing, inspire them then to want to make a positive difference. And then this work falls into areas like biodiversity action plans. That's a big area of work that we do, and that involves doing stuff too along the lines of ecology type services, where we're doing field work, habitat mapping, species surveys, learning about what nature exists in an area so that can inform the creation of a biodiversity action plan. We then do consultation. For example, there might be a local industrial estate where there's a number of companies working there, a number of factories, and all of the grounds might be contracted out to a landscaping company. And the companies in the industrial estate might actually bring in Wildwork to help us to work with the landscaping contractor to tweak the way they're managing the estate so that it can be done more nature friendly. And then we do physical work also. So you see some of the images there. We're managing a meadow using traditional methods, handheld tools such as scythes and rakes and the like of that. And the reason we use these handheld tools rather than big, large machinery is we want to develop ways to help nature that everybody can do. So if I want a load of people who live in the suburbs of Cork City to be able to manage their lawns for biodiversity, I think there's little point in us having a big, huge tractor and teaching them to do it with a tractor. So why don't we try and do it in a way that those people could do it in their own gardens? So that's very much what we're about. But to summarize it really, Wildwork is aiming to benefit nature and society. It's all about educating and raising awareness. And the piece I didn't mention yet, I did refer to the money bit earlier, but it's about employment activation in the biodiversity sector. It's about employment activation in the biodiversity sector because there's a lot of work to be done, a lot of important work to be done, and that can't just fall on volunteers or people who are going to do it at home. We need investment into jobs to make stuff happen for biodiversity. But also, going back to the work of CCAD, a lot of our work is in the area of social inclusion, and we're working with people who are looking to find new career opportunities and so on. And we have come across so many people who, for them, nature is a passion, but they may never have realized that it's an option for them as a work thing that they could do. So if we can grow work opportunities in the biodiversity sector, then hopefully that will create employment for people like that. One of our strengths then with Wildwork, I mean, there are good reasons to engage with Wildwork, as in we can help you to help nature, but why Wildwork? I think it goes back to the fact that we're connected with an organization like CCAD. Being an initiative with CCAD means that we are actually interconnected with so many different organizations, whether that's the local authority or a government department, but more so it's more a local tidy towns group or the GA club or the farmer who lives over the road. So we tried to do a count on how many community groups we were actively engaged with in 2017, and we stopped counting at 500. So that's one of the strengths for us. If a big industrial partner wants to come on board and work with Wildwork, that's one of the things, that you're joining a whole interconnected community of people who are doing things on the ground. So we're about helping everyone with their efforts to help nature. Wildwork is about investing in people and nature, and investment means money, and money is an important thing in this area. Nature needs us, but not as much as we need nature. So if you'd like to find out a bit more about Wildwork, you can check out our website. We've got podcast channel and YouTube videos as well. I definitely recommend go over onto our YouTube channel because we've a lot of new stuff that's been developed there. I guess thanks to the COVID pandemic, really, we've had to develop skill sets in that area, and we have a lot of very interesting videos now. So regarding the significance of sustainability for careers, I think Yvonne touched on this in a number of ways in her presentation. It's like you could see the importance Ornua are placing on sustainability, and that's not just Ornua. So in Wildwork, we are interacting with a range of organizations, and we're seeing sustainability growing as a theme within those companies. There's one recent contract we took on, and this organization was interested in working with us 3 or 4 years ago, and eventually they didn't at the time. But it was somebody within their environment, health and safety department that was interested. But just this year, they've come back to us, and they now have a sustainability department and a sustainability officer, and they want to put biodiversity at the forefront of their sustainability strategy. And they've reapproached us, and now we're up and running doing the project that they were initially kind of interested in 3 or 4 years ago. And I could give other examples, but you take it from me. In my career, I'm interacting with a lot of people in large organizations, and I can see over a number of years a big growth in this area. And the cool thing about all these people, like the new in that company, the new head of sustainability there, what that person shares in common with all the other people we interact with in Wildwork is that he has this passion for making a difference. He's passionate about biodiversity, about sustainability, about wanting to make changes. So if you're considering coming on the master's program here, I would hazard a guess that you're probably someone who really wants to go and make a difference. And you do need that enthusiasm, but the other thing you need is the skills and experience and know-how how to actually make that difference. And that's what you can get by coming on a master's program like what's on offer here. So I'd just like to give another example to come back to Dairygold. We referred to that in the origins of CCAD, and Ornua mentioned Dairygold as one of the organizations who are part of Ornua. Well, in this image here in front of you, on the screen, you can see what looks like a meadow. It's actually a sowing of wildflowers, and natural grasses have been allowed to grow up within it. They're all cornflowers, really, and poppies and different cornflowers growing within it. A really nice image just on the outskirts of someone's home. And the seed that was sown there is actually the same seed that was given out by Dairygold as part of a sustainability day that was run about 2 or 3 years ago now. And Dairygold gave out hundreds of these packets to farmers that came from all over Ireland to learn about sustainability on a dairy farm. And they want to raise the profile of nature, of native stuff in Ireland, and they recognise the importance. And they brought Wildwork in on that day and asked us to talk to farmers about this stuff. So there's a nice little local example of what's happening in this area sustainability-wise. And coming back to the cooperative.
Thank you so much, William.
Okay.
Thank you so much, William. I would actually listen to you all day. It's fascinating. But we do have to wrap it up. So if you wouldn't mind just maybe giving everybody who's listening on the call here just a kind of final few words.
Oh yeah, no bother. I was on them. So the final few words is that this course here, we didn't mention, but there's people within CCAD and they are graduates of the program here. There's people at the top of our organization who studied in UCC on previous iterations of this program many years ago. And you might find it difficult maybe to see, well, how could this be relevant? Where will I find the careers in this area? And I think if you just look right now, there are lots of career options. But the key takeaway that I would take home in watching today's webinar is that it's what's coming down the tracks. So I said there has been a lack of investment historically into biodiversity, for instance, but that's been growing majorly now. And with Wildwork, we've reached a point where we now have a project that's all looking at the replication of Wildwork throughout Ireland. We actually have some MSD cooperative studies students doing a work placement program with us who are doing some studies around that project. But we're taking Wildwork now to a bigger level where it's going to go national in Ireland, and we're looking at the model, the potential to replicate it. And the story of this is really interesting because it does represent growth in this area. But there's all kinds of stuff with the European Green Deal coming down the tracks that myself and Yvonne, we've come into this area. We perhaps both do jobs that didn't exist when we were wondering, what am I going to do when I grow up? But I think the future is very exciting in terms of sustainability, that there's all kinds of wonderful job opportunities that we don't even know about yet in this area. So thank you.
Great, thank you so much, William. I'm now going to introduce you to the co-director of the MSc in Cooperatives, Agri-Food and Sustainable Development, Dr. Noreen Byrne. Noreen will be giving us an overview of the programme. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Okay, thanks Trish, and thanks William. I could have listened to you all day as well. I just want to say a few words on the programme that William and Yvonne spoke about, and Olive as well. So it's the MSc in Cooperatives, Agri-Food and Sustainable Development. And the key learning objective of the MSc is to demonstrate an ability to articulate key sustainability challenges. So, but not only that, it's also to communicate and shape appropriate solutions. So we put a particular focus on the second part, yes, outlining the problems, but also trying to communicate and shape solutions to those. So the key features of the Masters, it's a 1-year Masters, so 12 months. September to March is the thought element of it. And from April to August, then we have a practice-based research project where you're out on placement. And William mentioned there that we have 2 students working with Wildwork. So that's a 6-month placement where you're out in the workplace, but you're also carrying out a piece of research as well. So the academic modules combine practical skills-based modules and also that industry practice exposure. So we very much have a focus on employability. And I suppose with the students, we very much have a one-to-one with them, trying to work with what they've studied at their undergraduate level, and then the masters, and then trying to be strategic in terms of the placement. So the entry requirements are a 2H or equivalent in a level 8 degree. So any discipline, we have people from commerce, and we'll hear from one of those graduates shortly, but also engineering, science, and the arts as well. So if you don't have 2H, it's still possible to come and talk to us, and you may have particular background, or and we will work with that. So even without the 2H, come and talk to us. So these are just some of the placements just up there, and I won't go through all of those, but so these are some of the organisations that people are working with, or places that they spent their 6 months on placement. So Changes by Degrees is a really interesting environmental consultancy company based in Cork, and the student there is in the number of companies and looking at how to encourage employees in terms of a transition to greater sustainability within the workplace, but also in their own personal lives. So William talked about Wildwork. 3LM is another interesting placement where the student is looking at EOV, ecological verification metrics. And ARC was a placement as well, where the student produced a report about Ireland's response to CAP. And Seaweed Company, a student is looking at the role of seaweed in animal feed. So I suppose the placements really vary, and it really depends on the student's own background and interests and where they want to go strategically themselves. So they sustain the careers then in terms, and I just have them subdivided here into companies and agricultural rural development sector. So I suppose in a company, very much around metrics and validation roles, and that's becoming increasingly important. So how do you measure what you say you're doing? Enabling partnerships with suppliers, producers and companies, communities, and that's why that Wildwork model is really, really interesting. Sustainability, compliance, regulatory roles, CSR roles in the food and other industries, and sustainability consultancy is another area. And just speaking to some of the consultancy companies, they're even finding it hard to find enough people. So agriculture, then rural development, that whole area of communication, we particularly focus on that. So how do you design communication frameworks for pro-environmental practice on farms and in communities? And as I said earlier there, with the student on placement in a company, in companies as well. EIP projects, results-based projects, so particular interest in that. Bioeconomy and circular economy enablers, and policy and research roles. So I suppose, as William was saying there, and Olive, when we started this program, a lot of these kind of positions weren't in existence, but you can see year on year that there's, this whole area is broadening. So this is just one of our graduates, and he's working on one of those EIP projects. He's working with IRD Duhallow on the Duhallow farming for blue dot catchments. So Mike would have come from a science background, and as he says here, that the program is designed to complement your skills. So if you're coming from a business background, you're learning about sustainability. And if you're coming from a science background, you're learning about business. So the program can be very challenging in that sense, but the inbuilt social and sustainability elements make it very interesting. So just as Olive and Yvonne mentioned, the scholarships. So we have a number of scholarships on the programme. We have FDC, the Jack Murphy scholarship, and there are up to 4 available. You have to achieve a minimum 2H1, and the value is 12,500, and that's a 5-month placement then with FDC. And what we've found over the years that because this scholarship has been in the programme for a number of years, that FDC is a really great company to work for. And they're very open to the students' own interests, which is really inspiring to see. So whatever the student is interested in terms of their work area or their research area, they really, really support that. So that's a great scholarship, and it's not oversubscribed either. So it's a real one to look out for. And I suppose with FDC, there's maybe an assumption that it's an accounting company, but that's very much not the case. The research projects have varied across a different wide area of areas, from renewable energy to debt partnerships on farms and agri-advice and all of that. So in terms of the other scholarships then, we have a scholarship, as Yvonne was mentioning. We're delighted and very thankful to Ornua for this scholarship, and this is just launched this year. And it's open to EU and UK citizens, and it's a minimum of 2H1 again, undergraduate degree. Value again is 12,500, and 5-month placement with our newest sustainability team. So this is a real opportunity to get an understanding of the wider food industry, the cooperative sector, and the role of sustainability as well, and Ornua's work. So this is a real opportunity that's available here to apply for. We also have another scholarship that's coming on board in the coming weeks, but that's another one to look out for on our Facebook and websites. So if you want to know any more about the programme, please feel free to contact either myself or Olive, and our details are up there. Okay, so I'd like to introduce one of our graduates, Quifa. Thanks. Quifa.
Hi, Noreen.
Yeah, I'll let you introduce yourself. You're one of our FDC scholars. So I'd just like to say that. So thank you, Quifa.
No problem. Thank you, Noreen. I'll just share my screen there. Now, hi everyone. My name is Quifa, and I'm going to be chatting to you a little bit about my own experience in MSC Cooperatives, Agri-Food and Sustainable Development. So just to start off a little bit about my own background. So I grew up just west of Dingle, County Kerry. I did my undergraduate in Commerce with Hispanic Studies in UCC. I then went on to do MSc Cooperatives, Agri-Food and Sustainable Development. And thankfully, I was a successful applicant for the FDC Jack Murphy Scholarship. And I'm currently working as a business graduate for Airgrid Group, so kind of similar to Yvonne's career. So what influenced me to do MSc Cooperatives, Agri-Food and Sustainable Development? So, like I said, I grew up in West Kerry, so I was surrounded by a lot of rurality. I went to a primary school of something like 50 students, so I was kind of interested in the rural development side of things. I also had a bit of an agricultural influence as well. My grandparents owned a dairy farm, so I used to spend my weekends milking cattle and picking stones in fields, and a bit of horticulture as well. So I had a little bit of experience in that field. Community and sustainability. So growing up, I always had my head stuck in something, whether it be sport or drama or charity. And I think that followed on as I got older. I got involved. I'm a member of the Youth Advisory Board for the Dingle Creativity and Innovation Hub. And it was through that I got introduced to a lot of sustainability initiatives. So I would attend seminars and workshops. And through that then, in my final year of my undergraduate degree, I wanted to delve a little bit further into sustainability. So I took Dr. Carol Power's 1-year module in sustainable development. And it was actually Carol who told me about this event this time 2 years ago. And I think I don't think I had any interest in doing a master's before attending this event. I think I might have been going for a cup of coffee and a sandwich. But after this event, I think I really realized if I did want to pursue a career in sustainability, then this was definitely the master's to do, and that would lead me into the career that I ultimately wanted to be in. So I decided to apply for the master's, and then the next step was trying to finance it. So a master's can be a bit of a financial burden for people, so I inquired into the FTC Jack Murphy Scholarship. So in the summer of 2019, I wrote my essay application, and then thankfully they called me for an interview at the end of August, and I found out a few days later I was a successful applicant for the scholarship, which was a massive weight off my shoulders. I was also really excited to join FTC as I didn't do placement. I went on Erasmus instead, so I was really looking forward to doing a bit of work placement with them, and I guess getting some work experience. But COVID-19 had other plans, so unfortunately I didn't get to carry out my placement, but I still got to do my research project in conjunction with FTC. So FTC were really good at facilitating the interest that I had and incorporating that into the research project. But I also wanted to take aspects that I'd learned from the course into that as well. So I decided to do an exploration of anaerobic digestion cooperatives in Ireland and the potential opportunities for FTC. Although I wasn't working in the office at the time, they gave me all the resources they possibly could for me to be able to get the best grade I could in the research project. So like Noreen said, I feel like they were really good at supporting all of their students, even the other people on the scholarship as well, really felt that support from them. So that was absolutely fantastic. The benefits to the masters, so I feel like I did get to do a lot of networking. I came from commerce, which was a pretty massive course, into this small master's, so it was different for me knowing all my lecturers on a first name basis and even being able to chat to them after lectures and stuff. But it was really good way for me of broadening my horizons and actually knowing all my peers by name, and us having discussions in classes. It was a lot less intimidating, I felt. I also feel like I definitely got an in-depth view into sustainability, so I don't think I even realised in my final year of college how surface level my knowledge of sustainability was until I did the masters. So I think that really has helped me in my career to date. It broadened my academic interest. So as I said, when I went into the masters, sustainability was at the forefront of my brain. But I think as I got to do the masters, I really got a love for the agri-food side of things and cooperatives especially. So it was really nice that I had a serious interest in all three aspects of the course. And then last but not least, probably the most important was employability. So like I said, I'm currently working as a business graduate for Erga Group, and that's exactly what I wanted to work in going into this masters. As they have a massive say in climate action plans in Ireland and that transition to renewable energy. So I think the biggest thing I learned from my undergraduate degree in final year, I was just applying for any job and every job. And after this event, when I decided that I really did want a career in sustainability, I actually only applied for 2 jobs throughout the masters, and I have ended up with one of them, and it's in my chosen career field. So I think that says a lot about the Masters in itself. So if anybody wants to contact me, you can get onto Noreen or Olive and they will send you my contact details, or drop me a message on LinkedIn if you want, and I can chat to you a little bit more about the Masters. And best of luck with the applications as well, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Quifa, for that. I'm just going to go through some questions that we got in the chat. So one of the questions is delivery going to be online in September and available part-time? So this particular program is available full-time, and in relation to whether it's going to be online or in person in September, we are hoping we'd be in a position to offer some in-class teaching in September. However, this is all dependent on the decisions of the National COVID-19 Emergency Management Team, and we will have to line them to the government roadmap for reopening society and businesses. So as the public health situation evolves, UCC will continue to respond in an agile manner in order to maximise the student experience. So I would just like to wrap up. I'd like to thank all the guest speakers and the panel for their time in engaging with the event today. So thank you to Yvonne, William, Quifa, Olive and Noreen. I'd also like to thank our Cubs media team who guided us and the panel so expertly through this event. And finally, I'd like to thank you, all the viewers who registered and attended this event, and I wish you the very best of luck with your applications.